Alright, people, midweek report time. So, lots of news is broken over the last couple of days. Fights announced, signings, fighters rumoured to be maybe looking elsewhere, and fights talked about in the pipeline. I think I want to start with a story that I was made aware of today. The Daily Mail in the UK were reporting this. And you know what, I look at this story and I just think, I'm not even surprised that this guy would want something this stupid in boxing. I shouldn't be. But still reading it nonetheless, you just have to laugh. So, Mauricio Sulaiman insists boxing must utilise video technology to prevent controversial incidents. As the WBC president claims, organisers are working hard to have instant replays for Fury versus Usyk. It's essentially like a VAR type of thing, which we have in football, which would not work remotely in boxing. Because it would, you're talking about having moments where, like, let's say a fighter buzzes another fighter and they have to pause and be like, oh, was that behind the head or something like that? That just would not work in boxing. I mean, I don't like VAR in football particularly. I really don't like it in football. And I know there's some moments you could say, well, if VAR was in football when Thierry Henry handballed against Ireland in '09, things could be different. Well, yeah, they potentially could be. I mean, that if they'd have beaten France, it would have went to penalty shootouts, and Ireland had no real good penalty takers that night. So I wouldn't imagine they would have won. But yeah, you could argue that. But I still despise VAR in football. I really do. It would not work in boxing. And he's saying here, right, because he did use something like it in the Charlie Edwards. Who was he fighting? Martinez. Charlie Edwards Martinez fight where Edwards got hit while he was down. I think he was hurt anyway prior to the stoppage or the knockdown. And then maybe it wasn't Sulaiman, but I'm pretty sure it was something like it. But they did use replays and said no. And, maybe in something like that, you could potentially argue it. Maybe if it's a fight. But saying that, like, if, let's say it was a fight ending shot where the guy, gets hit around the back of the head, and you could say, oh, like, let's not call that a knockdown. I know I called it. The guy's going to be in too bad a shape anyway. I just don't see that working. And again, Sulaiman saying he wants to get rid of controversial incidents. How's about, right? This would be a great idea if the four major sanctioning bodies work together, right? Work together to try and stop bad decisions. Major incidents, I would consider controversial incidents as bad decisions. Maybe they should do that. Maybe instead of the promoter, looking after the judges and the officials, maybe the WBC, WBA, WBO and IBF should all mutually agree on, we are choosing the officials, right? Mutually agreeing on it, and we'll either split the bill or they have to pay their own way, whatever, but they're not allowed any interactions with the promoters, etc. Maybe that would help the sport more than bringing in replays, because for me, one of the biggest problems in boxing, and there is a lot, I don't want to get into all the problems there are, because, I love boxing and I always try and be glass half full. Whenever I see a good show, regardless the level it's at, I'm always just like, oh, I'm so happy I got to see that. But there is problems, and as far as I'm concerned, decisions, scoring and decisions, I mean, you could possibly put them into one. But you look at a fight like Teofimo Lopez against Ortiz last week, where a lot of people felt Ortiz won. It was a close fight. I felt Ortiz won. But you have a judge with a 170 and 111 scorecard. Should the sanctioning bodies or the commissions not be saying, okay, let's have a word with that judge and get him to explain that scorecard? I think that would be better than, looking at replays for controversial incidents. I mean, what do you do? Like, that could be anything. I don't like that. And with Sulaiman is one of those, I'm going to use the word power pissed kind of guys, because his dad wasn't good, to say the least. But this guy is on a different level altogether. Some of the things he's done, the decisions he's made, you just look at this guy, you just think, like, what the actual hell? He reminds me a bit in F1, the head of the FIA, Stefano Domenicali, is a bit like Sulaiman. I would say Sulaiman is probably slightly, well, actually, they're both pretty bad. But they're both like that, guys who are now power pissed and are like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And it's stuff that makes no sense. And they act like, it's for the greater good. That's one of the biggest loads of what you'll ever hear. It's for the greater good. It never is. It never is. But I hope that doesn't happen, right? And I'm sure even the Fury Usyk fans would be saying the same. Like, whatever, but they think whoever they think is going to win, whatever you think about the fight, you don't really want to see replays. Like, stop it in the middle of the fight if something if they think happens. You really want to see that? I personally don't. Personally, for me. Now, we talk about Canelo Alvarez because this is... I'm clutching at straws here. I ain't going to lie, I'm clutching at straws. So it was declared that Canelo will be facing an American, not a Mexican, right, on May the 4th. We have yet, as of the time of recording this, to fully know, or we don't know at all, who it may be, as I look through the news. Now, Charlo, thank God, says basically he won't be fighting Canelo. I'll quote him here directly. He said, "I haven't even talked to Al Heyman since I last fought. So everybody keeps talking about you're going to fight Canelo, ain't got no confirmation." That's what he said there. Now, unless Al Heyman has gone behind his back and just said, right, he's fighting, and, you know, kind of like, you know, a Don King kind of thing where it's like, oh, yeah, you're going to fight this guy, and then spring it on Charlo. You know, here's a bag. You're fighting Canelo in 6 weeks. Good luck with that. Okay, so if he's not fighting Canelo, who would it be? Well, then you would argue that there's really only Terence Crawford, because Dave Benavidez... Canelo said he'll never fight a Mexican, but as we know, Dave Benavidez is born in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona to be exact, so he's Mexican-American. Jaime Munguia, he's fully Mexican as far as I believe, so could potentially be one or the other. Now, the Crawford, I want to see Canelo fight Benavidez. That's the fight I want to see for him. And some people have said to me, gee, has Canelo not earned the right to be able to pick whoever he wants? So if, for argument's sake, he wanted a Charlo, has he not earned the right to just pick and say, look, I'm going to fight Charlo. I've done enough. I've fought these guys. And I understand where you're coming from, right? For me, if you're undisputed champion and you've beaten all the other champions, taking their titles, but there is still, you know, some of those, you know, little dominoes left, some of those last dominoes to fall, like your Dave Benavidez's, I feel like you have to fight them. I feel like, especially if you are undisputed champion. If for argument's sake, you've cleared out the division, and, you know, you look and say, right, I've fought Benavidez, hypothetically speaking. I fought Plant, I fought Saunders, I fought whoever. And there's really no one else on the surface. You look and you're thinking, right, it's fairly dead. You know, maybe I will, you know, bring someone up from the weight division below. You could maybe look at that and say, well, yeah, I mean, it's a fairly dead division. But you've got Benavidez, who is live there. He's his mandatory and looking for a shot. Munguia is also there as well. So there is live opponents. Also, if Canelo said, right, I'm going to vacate all these titles, the other guys can fight for them, whatever, and I'm just going to go and fight, you know, whoever I choose. In that sense, go and do what you like, because you're not holding the division up. You're not stopping people, you know. But if Canelo, this is why, look, I've always liked Canelo. Right? He was one of the guys who really got me into boxing, so I think I've always had a little bit of, I don't want to say bias towards Canelo. I try and be as objective as I can be, but I've always had a bit of a soft spot, maybe, if I want a better word, for Canelo. But when I see something and I see a guy who should be fighting someone and he's not, I'm like, no, I'm going to say it. And if you're a champion, you're undisputed, and he's your mandatory, fight him. You know, that's Benavidez wants to fight him. And with regards to Crawford, look, I like the fight, don't get me wrong. It's a tremendous fight. But I think that the size, and this is how good Crawford is, that I would make Canelo favourite, but not a massive favourite. I just think that the size of Canelo over Crawford, yeah, Crawford is not exactly a small welterweight, he's quite big for welterweight, but welterweight, you're talking, welterweight is 147 pounds, the super middleweight limit is 168 pounds, 19 pounds, right? And you rehydrating as well. You know, we've seen it before where guys, you know, oh, I'm very big. Look at Kell Brook when he fought Triple G. You know, Triple G made middleweight his whole career. Okay, Kell Brook moved up 2 weight divisions, one of the biggest welterweights you'll see. It was like man against boy in there. You know, it was remarkable, really, but it was man against boy. And obviously, I'm not putting, you know, Kell Brook on the same level as a Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is just... I love Terence Crawford, as you know. I love that man. He is just tremendous. But I just think that size will be, for me, just too much. Teofimo Lopez has actually said he's considering using his WBO super champion status at 140 to become Terence Crawford's mandatory at 147. He says Terence Crawford is a human just like me. We bleed the same. He's just uglier. Yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't end well for Teofimo Lopez going in there against Terence Crawford. I mean, the fact he's mentioned him, fair play, but I think Terence Crawford would light this guy up like a Christmas tree. In fact, he'd probably stop him. He'd probably stop Teofimo Lopez. Seems obvious now Lopez struggles with movers, and you're struggling with people like Sandor Martin and Jermaine Ortiz who are moving. They're not really landing. Crawford can do both. He can move and land. I mean, this guy is seamless. That could end pretty damn bad for one Teofimo Lopez. Now, Ben Whittaker's next fight will be on the undercard of Fabio Wadley, Fraser Clark. I also seen that Alan Babbage is going to be fighting that Steve Robinson guy. So we haven't seen Alan Babbage since he fought and lost to, I can't remember his name now actually. Tony Bellew was even thinking of coming back and fighting him. It escapes me. But that'll be Alan Babbage back. Look, Steve Robinson is not particularly good, to say the least. So Babbage should have an easy time there. Ben Whittaker, a lot of eyes on Ben Whittaker after his last performance. A lot of people have been talking about him. People have been talking about him for good and bad. I've said it once, I'll say it again. I don't mind Ben Whittaker. I think he's a very, very good talent. Sometimes he can showboat a little bit too much, but at the end of the day, it's getting people talking. I don't mind the showboating. The kind of only issue I have with it is you're looking at these opponents and you're like, Ben, mate, just step on the gas, get rid of him. And, you just go and showboat, more showboat. And it's like, mate, just step on the gas, get rid of him. We're all done. Let's let the show move on. But I said that when he turned pro. I said, he'll be a Marmite character. Some people love him, some people hate him. But he's a very good fighter nonetheless. Tremendous fighter is Ben Whittaker. I really like him. I really like watching him. And is it the fact that he's cocky? Is it the fact that, people say like he's overconfident? Should he not be confident? I mean, is it not better to go into a situation full of confidence, whether it's a boxing match or your boxing career? If you go in and you think like, oh yeah, I'm humble, am I really the best? Not really, I mean, these guys are all, they are going to eat you up in a sport like boxing. Ben Whittaker, I like what he's doing. He's going in there, he's, as I said, the showboat, sometimes it can get a little bit, but he's going in there full of confidence. I like that. It's a good fight, Fabio Wadley, Fraser Clark as well. It's obviously on March 31st. Listen, O2 Arena, that's pushing it. That really is pushing it. I'm going to be frank, I don't even think it would fill the OVO. And I mean that in the nice way. I would say you would be looking at the copper box for a fight of that magnitude. I know some people would say that's a bit harsh. No, like Fabio Wadley and Fraser Clark, this isn't Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte. Very few heavyweight British title fights are going to be Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte. It's not that. It's not going to fill the O2. I think they should move that to a smaller venue. I do. I think they should, because they're going to comp a lot of tickets, I would imagine, for that fight. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. Naoya Inoue has said he plans on fighting 3 times this year. May the 6th, Lewis Neary, September and December. Enjoy this man while we have him. And I cannot wait for the Lewis Neary fight. Honestly, that is going to be brilliant. That's really going to be brilliant. And 2 of my favourite fighters in the same video, Naoya Inoue and then Subriel Mateus. So Subriel Mateus has signed a co-promotional deal with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing alongside Fresh Productions to fight on the zone moving forward. Now, some are actually thinking that could this be Eddie Hearn just looking to do, a transfer for this whole Matchroom versus Queensbury show? Potentially. But I think that Eddie Hearn genuinely is looking at Subriel Mateus and thinking, I could have a star here in my hands. Because he has a big following in his native Puerto Rico. He is a fighter who is such value for money. I mean, when you watch this guy, you are watching the guy go in there, throw lots of shots, go in for the kill. He doesn't seem to be afraid to fight anybody. And that style, it's entertaining, but it can age you. I think Mateus is in his early 30s now, thereabouts. So I think Eddie Hearn may have a finite window to make some good money with this guy, but I think he'll make good money with him nonetheless. Subriel Mateus, I'm glad he is with Eddie Hearn now. I'm glad he's with a better promoter, because, to be honest with you, with Al Heyman, that ship, I don't know what's going on there. It seems to be really sinking. I mean, they've only just signed with Amazon Prime. The first show, which is the Term and Zoo show, I'm not really madly compelled about that show, to be honest, which is certainly not that fight. And it's, I don't really know what's going on there. There's rumors that, people like Boots Ennis are looking to leave. And if he does go from Al Heyman, I mean, there's a potential star. I think they should have worked harder with Boots Ennis, quite frankly, because I think they should have a bigger following than he has, because he's just tremendous. And I think that a promoter, Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, Golden Boy, etc., will be looking and thinking, we'll have you. That'll do nicely, because I think he is tremendous as well. And this is a good move, as I said, for Sulaiman Mateus. I'm happy about that. Let's see. The rumour mill is that he's going to be fighting Liam Paro. That's a tricky fight. That's not an easy fight. And again, another undefeated opponent. Liam Paro was talented, but Mateus is just ferocious. Absolutely ferocious fighter is Sulaiman Mateus. He really, truly is. He really, truly is. Now, it's been announced. I did hear there was rumours about this, and it seemed almost likely, but Josh Taylor will now rematch Jack Catterall 2 and a bit years later, on April the 27th in Leeds. Interestingly, it's going to be at 140. Now, I always felt Josh Taylor will win the rematch with Jack Catterall if it's at welterweight. But 140, I'm going with Jack Catterall to win this fight. Because I think that Josh Taylor should never have fought, in hindsight, should have moved up to 147 when he became undisputed, when he beat Jose Ramirez. I think it was who he beat. I had to think of his name. I was like, it was Zepeda? No, it was Ramirez. He should have moved up to 140 after that fight. He stuck around, fought Jack Catterall, didn't do the weight good, looked bad in the scales, looked terrible on fight night, really lost the fight, but we got the nod. Shouldn't have, but he got it. Then he goes, takes about a year and a bit out of the ring, fights Lopez, again at 140. I think that was a mistake as well, and stylistically you could look at that and say, well, Taylor would have complimented Lopez quite a bit. It's why Lopez, well, it's not why he looks so good, it's one of the reasons why he looks so good. Now against Jack Catterall, I just think that is just going to be, nail in the coffin for Josh Taylor, in my opinion. If it was at 147, different story, I think Josh Taylor would have done it. Maybe knowing that Jack Catterall is as good as he is, he'll take this a bit more serious, because I do think there was an element of that. Josh Taylor kind of looking at Jack Catterall, like many of us did, thinking, it's easy, get through this and we're done. If Jack Catterall loses, then I know it's going to sound bad, but I'd say stick a fork in him. Because I don't think Eddie Hearn is really going to... Because Eddie Hearn even talked about this fight before, was kind of like, they're trying to get it done, but he's not going to break his back for it. It's in Leeds, of all places. And Jack Catterall just doesn't... Like, Jack Catterall, for the last 2 years, that's been his whole selling point. And it's gone to the stage now where the fans, prior to this fight being announced, were so sick of it that it's like, that... Jack Catterall mentions Josh Taylor, the fans, you see it in the comment section of his posts on his videos, and it's just like, don't care, move on. But in the nicest way, that's all Jack Catterall really has. In boxing, there are certain characters who, they might not have an entertaining style in the ring, but they're a real brazen character on screen. They say this and they say that, and they make all these, and people want to watch them because they either like them or they want to see them lose. And then you have other people who are, Sulaiman Mateus has limited English, but goddamn, you do not want to miss him fighting. Jack Catterall is, not charismatic. He's not a brazen character, and his style is not particularly entertaining. All that means the promoter is going to be looking and thinking, God damn, what am I going to do with you? And I think if he loses, that may be what Eddie Hearn is potentially faced with. The fight should really have happened in 2022 after the first one. And, Josh Taylor was saying that it was Ben Shalom's fault. I tend to believe that, to be fair, because the fact that Jack Catterall left Ben Shalom not long after, he never even made his debut a boxer. For me, that kind of makes me think, probably Ben Shalom, being Ben Shalom, somehow had a fight that he could have probably done on pay-per-view, and he somehow let that fall through his fingers, as he's let many, 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 many things fall through his fingers in his time with Sky. The British Boxing Board of Control have now joined the EBU in ordering Dalton Smith versus Adam Azim. Please, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. I would be making Dalton Smith favourite against Adam Azim personally. But look, Shalom is high on Azim, Eddie Hearn is high on Smith. Why not? If one loses, so be it. Adam Azim is what, 21 years old. Dalton Smith is what, in his mid to late 20s. It's not the end of the world for either guy if they lose, and the other guy goes on to bigger and better things. I mean, I just, what's not to like? The British Boxing Board of Control have also approved Solomon Dakers, I should say. I always get his name kind of mixed up. Versus David Adelaide for the English title on March the 16th. The winner must face Moses Atelma next. We might get Atelma versus Adelaide because, I mean, Solomon Dakers, when he was with Matchroom, I was like, okay, he is not particularly good. Then he joins Frank Warren, and I'm like, why is Frank Warren signed him? Because he's not particularly good. He fought, can't remember the guy's name now, in his debut. I think that was on the Magnificent Seven show. He looked absolutely awful. And I just thought, you know what, Atelma beats him now. Adelaide will absolutely have a field day with this guy as well. So, yeah, that's for the English title, by the way. God damn. Gone from being on a card in Saudi Arabia fighting for the British title to now looking at an English title in Birmingham. Lawrence Okolie is set to return and move up in weight. He'll either campaign a heavyweight or bridger weight next. He's still Ben Shalom says he's still a huge name. I wouldn't go that far. There aren't many boxers who can walk down the street and people know who they are, and Lawrence is one of them. Anyway, right, so Conor Ben told reporters that the offer Eddie Hearn made to Tank Davis to fight him next would see him make between 10 to 15 million. All right, he said, if that ain't enough, stay quiet. Let's see. I would definitely be making, as I said once, I'll say it several times, I'd be making Tank Davis firm favourite over Conor Ben. I really would. I really, truly would. We've also had the announcement this week that we are going to get Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia, the BBC 140-pound title, April 20th in Las Vegas. Brilliant fight. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. You dropped the phone there. It really kind of shows me that, Ryan Garcia, it's almost kind of like, I've got no other options. I'm not going to get the Teofimo Lopez fight. I tried to fight Rowley. He's fighting Pitbull. And now I want a big fight. Well, the only big fight is Devin Haney. And I think he obviously looked at Haney and thought that style is not going to gel well with me. But at the end of the day, you got nowhere else to go now. Look, I like Ryan. I think he's tremendously talented. I do. But he didn't look particularly good in his last fight, and then he lost prior to that to Tank Davis. I know Devin Haney ain't the puncher Tank Davis is. He's more of a slick boxer, and maybe there's some success that Ryan Garcia will be able to have, maybe. But I'll still be making Devin Haney firm favourite going into this fight. Absolutely firm favourite going into this fight. I really, truly will. Other than that, I think that's pretty much most of the news. And I don't know how long I've been talking for. So you'll say like, gee, you talk enough. Well, some might say that. But I always have to talk. I always want to try and, make sure I've, looked at everything I can. So let's have a look-see quickly on Boxing Scene and see what exactly there is. Let's see. Yeah, Catterall versus Taylor 2. Keith Thurman. I wish I'd have done more. So do I. I wish you'd have done more. But I've still got more left in the tank. I don't think you do. Well, yes, I do wish you would have done more because there was a lot you could have done. I was a big Keith Thurman fan back in the day. So he's acknowledging he should have done more. Guillemarian versus Ramirez set for March 30th in Greater Los Angeles area. Still can't believe Ramirez is fighting for a world title after one fight. That was at a catch weight of 191, I think, or thereabouts. But that's boxing. Look, he is now a cruiserweight. He was a massive liar. God knows how he made 168 pounds. Honestly, that is remarkable. What the hell was he doing to get down to that weight? Berlanga aiming for a showdown with Canelo. I have to open his eyes with a statement win over McCroy. Yeah, listen, that's not a foregone conclusion. I certainly don't think it is. I think that Patrick McCroy is much improved. Yes, he is getting old. There is the one worry, but he's a very good fighter. He's much improved. And quite frankly, I've not been impressed with Berlanga. I haven't been impressed with him since even when he was at Top Rank. I wasn't impressed with him when he fought on the Fury Wilder trio on the card. I thought he looked terrible in that fight. He was dropped in that fight as well. And Diego Pacheco. beat him with ease. That same guy with ease. So listen, McCrory can punch. Podrick McCrory can. Oh, I wouldn't look. I wouldn't rule it out. I'm not saying necessarily that I'm picking Podrick McCroy, but I wouldn't rule him out because I haven't been remotely like I don't think there's ever been a performance that I've seen from Edgar Berlanga where I've looked and thought, yeah, that was impressive. The genuine one there hasn't been. I certainly haven't seen it. So if anyone has, you can let me know in the comments. But I certainly haven't looked at him in any performance and thought, oh yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing there. No, I think that he'll probably win that fight, maybe on points. I'll give you, Berlanga fought Quigley, didn't he? I think in his last fight. And Quigley, like I don't rate Quigley. I never rated Quigley, Jason Quigley. I never rated him at all. And I was surprised how competitive it was. And Patrick McCroy is, in my opinion, much better than. Now, obviously, styles make fights. You take that into consideration. But looking at both of those, I feel like Patrick McCroy is way better. They're not even the same league. Way better, Patrick McCroy. So that's going to be a tough fight for Berlanga. Make no mistake about that. As for everything else, I will leave it there. Lads, I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. I have missed doing these long ones. I really have. I love getting all into these. Just sitting there, chatting boxing, looking through the news, all that good stuff. I do enjoy these ever so much. I hope you enjoy listening. For now, lads and lassies, I'll leave it there. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. And for now, lads and lassies, I will leave it there. Peace.